Traffic stopped. Security panicked. And then, silence. A 6-year-old girl stood fearlessly in front of President Ibrahim Traoré's convoy. What could have been a crisis turned into the most heart-melting moment of the year. What she said next left everyone speechless, and the world instantly understood why. What happens when a 5-year-old orphan girl stands in front of the most powerful man in her country and tells him to stop? Not out of fear, not out of confusion, but because of a dream. This is the unbelievable true story of how a barefoot child named Hope stopped a presidential convoy with nothing but her voice and ended up saving not just a life, but an entire nation. Watch until the end to witness the moment when a dream collides with destiny. A parable becomes prophecy, and the smallest voice becomes the loudest in history. Based on a real incident in Burkina Faso, this emotional storytelling video reveals a side of leadership, faith, and courage you've never seen before. It began like any other morning, a canvas painted in soft hues of gold and lavender, as the sun climbed gently over the horizon in Burkina Faso. Birds chirped sweet melodies dancing through acacia trees, and the cool air whispered promises of a good day. It was quiet, too quiet. But what no one knew was that history was about to take an unexpected turn, not in a parliament, not in a war room, but on a deserted stretch of road where fate stood barefoot. A convoy of sleek armored vehicles cut through the countryside like a procession of shadows. Black, polished, and imposing, they carried not just men and machines, but the weight of a nation's future. In the center of this high-security parade rode the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. Inside his fortified vehicle, the president sat upright, cloaked in traditional wear that spoke of power and pride. His eyes scanned a thick folder of documents, international contracts, economic policies, and the blueprint of a historic deal. This wasn't just another day at work. This was the day that could define the destiny of an entire generation. "We must arrive in the capital within 2 hours," he said firmly, not looking up from the pages. "This meeting is not about politics. It's about the future of our country." "Yes, Your Excellency," the assistant replied, adjusting his tie, nerves tight with purpose. The driver pressed his foot harder against the accelerator. Time was of the essence. Every second felt sacred. The roads were clear, not a soul in sight. Guards sat poised in the lead and rear vehicles, eyes scanning, fingers near triggers. A formation trained to eliminate threats before they even breathed. But no amount of training prepares you for the unthinkable. Just as they approached a bend in the road, smooth, paved, utterly unremarkable, a small figure stepped out from the e-shadows of the surrounding brush. A guard was the first to shout, "What is that?" The driver slammed the brakes. Tires screamed. Dust exploded into the air like cannon fire. The entire convoy lurched to a jarring halt. Soldiers sprang from the vehicles, rifles in hand, eyes blazing. But what they found was not a threat, not in the way they expected. She stood in the middle of the road, a little girl no more than 5 years old. Her dress was tattered, the color long faded. Her feet were bare, skin darkened by the sun, hair wild and dry. But her eyes, those eyes were something else, piercing steady, like she had seen things far beyond her years. "Move. This is the president's convoy." A driver barked. "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" But she didn't flinch. Her voice was soft, but it carried an unexpected power. "I need to see the president. It's urgent." The guards exchanged, glances more confused than threatened. "Little girl, move aside. This is a matter of national importance." One of them snapped. "No," she said firmly. "You cannot pass. Please, Gay, wait here just for 2 hours." 2 hours? One of the guards scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "You want the president of an entire nation to wait because a child said so?" The absurdity of it echoed in the silence. Laughter followed, nervous, dismissive, but the girl did not laugh. President Traoré, annoyed by the sudden delay, stepped out of the vehicle. His presence alone shifted the atmosphere. He was a man of action, known for strength and decisiveness. This interruption was unacceptable. "What is going on here?" he asked, his deep voice cutting through the chaos. The girl pointed straight at him. You are the one I came to stop." He blinked, confused. "Me?" "Yes," she replied. "You must not continue this journey. You must wait here." For 2 hours, the laughter died down. The air grew heavier. A strange silence fell over the group. Some guards looked to the trees. Some looked to the sky. Even the birds had gone still. This was no ordinary interruption. And this girl wasn't ordinary either. The president furrowed his brow. "Little one, I admire your courage, but I cannot delay this mission. I've waited years for this meeting. Our people depend on it." The girl stepped closer. "A goat does not run in the daytime for nothing," she said. The phrase hit like a riddle with teeth. Her eyes, though filled with dust and pain, held no madness, only certainty. And for the first time that morning, President Ibrahim Traoré hesitated. The silence after the girl's words was thick and strange, almost holy. A girl no older than 5 had told the leader of a nation to stop. And somehow she hadn't been laughed off the road. President Ibrahim Traoré stood tall. The weight of responsibility coiled around his shoulders like a royal cloak. He looked down at the girl, this dusty, shoeless stranger who stared back at him without fear. There was something ancient in her gaze, something unshaken. It unsettled him more. Then he cared to admit, "I do not take commands from children," he said, more to himself than her. "I'm not giving a command," she replied. "I'm giving a warning." The guard stiffened. A warning? Was she a messenger, a setup, a distraction? One of them muttered, "Your Excellency, allow us to remove her. This is clearly a delay tactic, perhaps sent by your enemies." But the president raised a hand, silencing him. "Let her speak." The girl took a breath, steadying herself. "If you pass this road now, you will not return." "I saw it." "Saw what?" he asked, his tone still skeptical, but his eyes now searching. "In my dream," she said quietly. "There was fire, loud cries, cars were melting, people were screaming, and you were at the center of it, trapped." President Traoré frowned, unsure whether to scoff or shiver. The girl wasn't blinking. Her voice didn't tremble. "This meeting I am going to," he said slowly, "is not just important, it is critical for the lives of millions. How can I stop based on the dream of a child?" She met his gaze and said something that made even the wind pause. Even a lion pauses when the antelope refuses to run. The words hung in the air like a bell after it struck. The guards exchanged glances again. One of them whispered, "Sir, this girl, she's no ordinary child." The president felt something he hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. He turned away in frustration, muttering, "This is madness." He marched back to the car, ready to leave this moment behind. But the girl's voice sliced through the air once again. "If you go, you will not return." He stopped. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, spinning back toward her. She hesitated, then spoke slowly. "Because I saw it and no one else will believe me. I have no parents. I sleep near the old well. I have nothing except this dream, and I knew I had to stop you." She looked at him with tears in her eyes now. Her hands trembled slightly, but her feet remained planted like she had rooted herself to the earth with the weight of her warning. "I have nothing," she repeated, "but if I let you go, I would lose the only thing I still have. My voice." President Traoré's jaw tightened. The girl's conviction, her strange mix of fragility and fearlessness, was disarming. He knelt down, a gesture no one expected from a man of his stature. "What's your name?" he asked. "Hope," she whispered. A murmur rippled through the convoy. He stared into her eyes, those deep wells of warning, and felt something ancient stir in his chest. It was like listening to a forgotten drumbeat buried in the soil. He rose slowly and turned to his guards. "Can't cancel the journey. We wait." A wave of disbelief rippled through his team. "Sir?" one of them asked, stunned. "I said we wait," the president barked. And just like that, on a forgotten road in the middle of nowhere, An entire presidential convoy came to a halt because of a little girl with a dream. The guards, though skeptical, obeyed. Some paced restlessly, others stood by the trees, eyes scanning the horizon for threats. But no one said another word against the decision. President Traoré sat back in his car. He looked out the window. The girl Hope sat on a rock by the side of the road, her eyes still on the sky. "I must be mad," he muttered. But somewhere in his gut, he knew he wasn't. Time began to slow. The presidential convoy sat like a row of sleeping beasts under the tall trees, their engines now silent. Soldiers loosened their collars under the rising heat, unsure of what exactly they were guarding against. A 5-year-old girl had brought them to a stop, and none of it made any sense. Inside his car, President Ibrahim Traoré stared at the clock on the dashboard. 8 minutes had passed. He exhaled heavily, tapping his fingers on his knee. Outside his window, Hope remained seated on the rock, her small frame still as stone, her eyes watching the sky with unnerving focus. His assistant, seated beside him, checked his phone again. The device buzzed with incoming calls, urgent notifications, and impatient demands. "Sir," he said, carefully, "it's the international business delegation again." The president took the phone. "Yes." A voice, sharp accented and full of authority, cut through the speaker. "Your Excellency, this delay is highly disrespectful. If you're not here in the next 90 minutes, we will pass this opportunity to another country." President Traoré rubbed his temples. "Please understand. I'm slightly delayed, but I will. You have 60 minutes. The voice snapped. "After that, it's over." Click. The line went dead. In the stillness that followed, the guards huddled near the lead vehicle, whispering in low voices. "This doesn't feel right. She's delaying him on purpose. What if it's a trap? What if she's been sent to stop him for something darker?" One of the senior guards stepped forward and approached the car. "Your Excellency," he said firmly, "I fear for your safety. This child, this story, it doesn't make sense. We cannot allow the fate of this country to rest on the words of a barefoot stranger." Another added, "We should leave before something else happens, before it's too late." The president was silent for a long time. He looked again at the girl, still sitting, still watching, not moving, not speaking, as if waiting for something that hadn't yet arrived. His chest was tight, not from anger, from something else, something he hadn't felt in years. Doubt. He opened the car door, stepped out, and marched toward her. "You," he barked, "I've had enough. I'm the president of this country. I don't answer to shadows and dreams." Hope stood up slowly. Her dress fluttered slightly in the warm breeze. "Please," she said again calmly. "Wait, no," he shouted. "You have no right to command me. You're too small, too poor, too everything." Silence fell. Even the birds had stopped. Hope didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She just looked at him. "I blame myself," he said, his voice lowering, "for even listening to you. I've worked my whole life to lead, to be wise. And here I am, delayed by a child who claims to have seen fire in a dream." She looked into his eyes, her voice soft but steady. "Even a lion pauses," she said, "when the antelope refuses to run." The words returned again, but this time they struck differently. "What do you mean?" he asked quietly. Hope stepped forward, her small shadow barely touching his shoes. "You are the lion, strong, feared. But sometimes danger doesn't roar. It waits like the antelope that doesn't flee, and when the lion pounces, it falls into the trap." His breath caught in his throat, she continued. "A big man who refuses to listen to a small warning becomes the loudest cry in the graveyard." Gasp rippled through the nearby soldiers. Even the hardened guards could feel it. The chill in the air, the weight of her words. President Traoré stared at her. His eyes were no longer defiant. They were searching. "If I was lying," she whispered, "would I be standing here in the sun with no food, no shoes, waiting just to stop you?" His chest rose and fell. He couldn't answer. Finally, he turned to his guards. "We wait. Full stop." This time no one argued. In a world often ruled by political tension and hardened power structures, the most powerful moments can come from the smallest voices. And that's exactly what happened when a 6-year-old girl stood in the path of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's presidential convoy and stopped everything. It began as a normal day in the capital. The president's convoy was making its way to a state event, escorted by armed guards and surrounded by flashing lights. But as they turned a corner, the unexpected happened. A little girl stepped directly into the road, her hands raised, her eyes filled not with fear but purpose. Security forces moved quickly, expecting danger. But within seconds, Traoré gave a single clear command. Stop. He exited his vehicle, walked straight toward her, and knelt to her level. Cameras caught the moment, but no one knew what was happening. Until the girl opened her mouth. With a trembling voice, she said, "My mother is sick. The hospital has no medicine. Please help us." The silence that followed was unlike anything the capital had seen. This wasn't a protest. It wasn't political. It was a plea. From the heart of a child who couldn't wait for bureaucracy or protocols. Her courage to stand before power itself was the purest expression of hope. Without hesitation, Traoré lifted her into his arms. He didn't wait for the cameras to clear or the aides to plan. He asked for her mother's name, their location, and then gave immediate orders. Medicine was to be delivered that day, and the hospital would receive additional aid by the end of the week. Later, in a heartfelt public address, Traoré shared the story. "This little girl reminded me," he said, "that leadership is not about position, it's about protection. It's about listening to the quietest voices before the loudest ones." Her story quickly went viral. News outlets across Africa and beyond shared the moment. Social media flooded with reactions, tears, pride, hope. Artists painted murals of the girl and Traoré. She became known as the girl who stopped the president. But beyond the headlines, something deeper was awakened. A new wave of belief in compassionate leadership. People began to see Traoré not just as a revolutionary figure, but as a father to the nation. Someone who didn't just lead from the palace, but from the heart. Traoré later visited the girl's home, met her mother, and promised long-term support, not just for them, but for all families in similar need. He launched a new healthcare initiative inspired by that moment, ensuring better funding and supplies for public hospitals. In that simple, brave act, a 6-year-old child changed policy, touched hearts, and reminded an entire nation what humanity looks like. And Captain Ibrahim Traoré showed the world that real strength doesn't come from how high you stand, but from how low you're willing to kneel when someone small needs you most.